was because I decided that it was in my best interest, personally, to accept full responsibility for what I did. If I was the leader and I was guiding these people, I'm not going to throw them under the bus. I'm not going to get them in more trouble. I'm not going to do more damage to them in exchange for leniency. I clearly understood then that the only way for me to begin to rebuild my credibility and to hopefully one day redeem myself was to accept full responsibility. So that's what I did. I didn't testify against anybody. I didn't give any information about anybody from the day they came in there with the BALCO raid. I said, listen, I'm not going to cooperate. I'm not in any way, shape, or form. If that works for you, great. If it doesn't, it simply is what it is. Now, I filed a declaration under penalty of perjury stating that what is in that memorandum of activity report the day that they raided BALCO, those are lies. Those are information that was written that I never said the things that they said that I said. And interestingly, toward the end of the day, they came in at 12:21, but right before we walked out the door, about 5 o'clock, there was a period where we sat in the BALCO kitchen, 2 IRS agents, 2 narcotics task force officers, and Jim Valenti and myself. And I told him exactly what I just said. I'm not going to cooperate with you. Interestingly, that period of time that we were in there in this memorandum of activity, which is many, many pages with entries every 2 or 3 minutes, the largest other entry, I think, took 6, 7 minutes in between, right? And the lady that was doing this, her name's Wendy Berglund, I'll tell you her name, the agent. She came by and stood in the doorway and looked when it was scribing. She'd go room to room to room. Very interestingly, 53 minutes during that meeting is deleted from the report. So what I really said is non-existent.
Wow. Okay?
So, and I filed a declaration under penalty of perjury saying exactly what happened in that meeting and saying that these officers lied in what they said in their report. Okay?
So why did you not talk about Barry Bonds?
I did talk about Barry Bonds.
But I've heard you talk about Greg Anderson.
No, I've talked about Barry Bonds. What did I not talk about Barry Bonds?
Tell me, what was your relationship with Barry? Did you work one-on-one with Barry? Did you?
I never met with Barry without Greg being there. I only saw Barry probably a total of 3 times. We never ever talked about steroids or any sort of performance enhancement whatsoever, so there was no discussion. Mm-hmm. He asked me if I would be willing to meet with his brother, which we won't identify which one, who had a chemical dependency, and would I test him and help him. There was another time when his father was sick with cancer, when he wanted to know, could he give shakes or supplements or anything to his dad. So we talked about that. Yes, we went over his test results, but it was not anything to do with steroids. It was 100% about nutrition. So there was never, ever any discussion, not a single word between Barry Bonds and me, even in Greg Anderson's presence, about steroids. Now, that's what I've said. Mm-hmm. Now, they raided the place by surprise. They went in my locker. They found every single file, including Barry Bonds, and they never found a single shred of evidence to contradict anything I've ever said. Okay? Right. So there's a reason that at the end of this long period of time, from the day they came in, September 3rd, 2003, we were indicted February 13th, 2004, that they have nothing. Even after pulling out all these athletes, 40 athletes, and they're testifying, right? To indicate that I ever had a discussion or ever gave Barry Bonds anything. So that's simply reality. No other player, any one of them said, well, Barry told us this, or Victor told us this, or Greg told us this. So they charged me with 42 counts. You notice at the very end, the front page of the San Francisco Chronicle said 40 of 42 BALCO charges dropped.
Yeah.
Now, not only did I not cooperate in any way, shape, or form, but I spearheaded what they called a global plea bargain. And that meant that what happened with me established what happened with everybody else. The reason is because this so-called conspiracy charge, you got to have a leader. And of course, they get an extra 2 points, which puts you from a 0 to 6 month category to an 8 to 12 month. So the total points, I fell right in the middle at an 8 month, right? That's why I got a 4 and 4. 4 months of minimum security, 4 months of ankle bracelet, split sentence. Mm-hmm. But no cooperation, none, 0. Why? Because I wanted to take full responsibility. I'm not going to go, if I'm leading these people and teaching these people and guiding these people, then what? I'm going to testify against him, but let me make a really important point right now. Here's what happened overall in the BALCO case. There were two guys at the very top of the food chain. One's his name, Miles Weir. He came and testified, okay? And my opinion, he lied during the grand jury testimony. He worked in a pharmacy in Texas. Whatever I wanted, I would send him a check and he would ship it to me. This guy had many, many people just like me. This guy was just out the back door. He was at the top of the food chain making all the money. You know what consequence he got? Try zero.
Nothing.
Okay? Because he went and made up stuff. Told whatever they wanted him to say, that's what he said, and he walked. So usually they roll the little guys up to get to the big guys. Not in the BALCO case. The second was Angel Memo Heredia, who's now working with Juan Manuel Marquez, the boxer, who's getting ready to fight Manny Pacquiao. Okay? This guy was from El Paso, Texas. They got to him. He had been selling drugs, admittedly, to Trevor Graham and every one of that Sprint Capital, Marion Jones, Tim Montgomery, on and on and on. Dwayne Ross, Ramon Clay, the list goes on and on and on. He came in, testified against Trevor Graham, he walked. Well, the word now is he's not only working with Juan Manuel Marquez, but likely the group Usain Bolt and all the Jamaicans who did the things that they did, winning 5 out of the 6 gold medals in the 100 and 200 meters. So this guy got no consequence whatsoever, and my opinion, he's back doing exactly what he was doing before. Why? Because it was all about a trophy hunting expedition. They went after the names. There were at least 10 baseball players who testified. Okay? I know what every one of their grand jury testimonies said because I've read them all. Because the government vacated the protective order. They're out there. Okay? So I know what they say. Basically, every athlete said the same thing that Barry Bonds said. But Barry got indicted.
Yeah.
It's selective prosecution, in my opinion. One reason he had the biggest name. They're after the names. I believe Nowitzki was after Barry Bonds from day number one when he went through my trash for an entire year to get a U.S. attorney, Jeff Nedrow, to give him $300 so that he could have an undercover guy, Iran White, buy a membership to the gym at Worlds right around the corner from BALCO to go in there and try to do undercover work, right? Why would the guy every single week for an entire year on his own dime, and he's an IRS agent, and let's get to the end of that. They spent, we don't know, but tens of millions of dollars, whether it's 50, 60, 70, 80, we don't know, right? But lots. A lot of money.
Yeah, lots.
Okay, here's the money laundering case, what I pled to. $100 of money laundering. Smallest case, I've been told, and could be wrong, but the smallest federal case of money laundering in the history of the United States of America.
$100.
$100. And you know what it was for? The guy Miles Weir I told you about, running the pharmacy. Yeah. I wanted the stuff to be shipped out a couple times, and I paid him $50 because he said, well, I got to go gas to go around on the other side of town, and I got to pay the babysitter because it'll take me an extra hour, and whatever the gas was and the extra 20, I said, I'll give you 50 extra, ship it today. 2 times. He told them it was, and here's something that'll boggle your mind. The original indictment by the IRS and their involvement was money laundering and steroid distribution. The steroid distribution was the equivalent, each unit or bottle of steroids or tablets of 50 equals 1 unit. A unit is the equivalent of 1 joint of marijuana. So they had about 25 units on me, which is the minimum 0 to 6 months category, okay? That means that what I did was the equivalent of having less than an ounce of marijuana. Do you spend tens of millions of dollars and that's the case? So then, and I also had a doctor with a prescription, and every month I would get 100 grams, and I would put on, so this was a 30-day supply from the doctor, and I shared this with a few athletes. So that's the distribution part, is that I shared my own testosterone cream prescription with some athletes. That's illegal. So there's that part of the charge. Of these 2 counts out of the 42, and 40 were dropped. I'm talking about the remaining 2 counts. Secondly, 2 times $50 for paying the guy, and here's what happened. I wrote him a $2,200 check for the drugs. The original agreement said a portion of this check, right? And then didn't he say it? Well, then finally in the later agreement, it said a portion of the check in an amount of less than $1,000. So it's in the federal record that the money laundering charge was less than $1,000. I'm telling you, it was $100, two $50 amounts. And that's based on what he told them, right?
Wow.
So the original charge was for concealment, prong, 1456 of the federal code, meaning that I separated my money into personal, BALCO, and snack. So the drug money, they said that I put it into snack. But later when I proved that I'd received all kind of money, 10,000 from one source, 5,000 from another, 1,500 from another, we had a half a dozen people that came forward with affidavits and proved they didn't have a case anymore because they could no longer prove concealment. So the deal, this has never been out there before, so that what happened was I waived my right. The original indictment was for 1456. I just says, okay, we'll waive the right for you to have to go back to the grand jury to get a second indictment against me for 1457, which is called promotion of the activity. Well, this is what I pled to. He got sent the testosterone powder, or the epitestosterone. He added it together and he blended it in a blender, and he said that he charged me $50 to blend it. It's like having a little blending cookie batter.
Yeah.
Okay? And he sent it back to me, and they said, okay, $50 times 2, $100. We got you. We got a guy that testified. And he's the guy at the top of the food chain who made all the money, but we're going to let him go.
Wow.
So here's reality of what they had, what they didn't have, you know, about do I have regrets, do I not? Am I glad that I made the decisions that I did, which was to accept full responsibility? Because think about this. Let's go back and put this all in perspective now. If you remember the day that I was indicted and we walked out front afterwards, there was 250 media member there. When we stood in the lobby and I looked at my lawyer and I said, wow, all these cameras, this is like Michael Jackson or something,
Yeah,
right?
yep.
So I walked outside and what did I do? Do you remember? How about?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, front page news, the Times of London, New York Times, LA Times. Who is this guy? What does he know that we don't know? Well, I'm telling you a little bit about that now.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, they thought, this guy's crazy. He is the equivalent of giving the double finger to the government. No one does that. All this time later, when it comes down, and it's on the front page that all these charges are dropped, where they had published on the front page of the San Francisco Chronicle that I was, the sentence involved that I was looking at was 30 years. I mean, they were comparing me to Al Capone, okay? What did they really have? I think the world now knows that answer.
Yeah, I remember that you were going away. You were going away for a long time. That's
You know
what I
how bad
remember.
this scared my family when my wife's sister somebody would say, oh my God, this guy's going, I feel sorry for his wife. He's going to be gone for 30 years.
Yeah.
But I knew the truth. I knew they lied about everything that was in these reports. I knew that they didn't have the evidence.
Yeah.
Was I guilty of wrongdoing? Yes. Was it relatively soft? Yes. Was it, if it hadn't been for the leadership points, was it in a 0 to 6 month category? Yes. People think quantity is moving, mass quantity. I'm telling you, you could have had 5 times the amount of stuff that I had and still came in less than the 250 units, they call it, right? So I had 1/10 of that. This was like the most minuscule, like I say, in points, the equivalent of less than an ounce of marijuana.
Yeah.
Now, do you bring in helicopters, SWAT teams with assault rifles, 26 agents in flak jackets? I mean, this was crazy.
But think about this for a minute, though. Did your product break the Major League Baseball home run record? Because Barry, in his testimony, whether he called it flaxseed one time, got it from Greg Anderson, he pretty much admitted he used the cream in the clear.
No, it doesn't matter what he admitted to or not. He tested positive for in the survey. They went back and reanalyzed his urine sample, and it had THG in it. So he clearly took it.
Right.
Now, what I've always said in the beginning, and I'm going to tell you this just straight up, did I deal with a lot of people, athletes, that were using steroids that I never gave them any? Of course. Look on these walls. I mean, in one single day in 1998, I went to San Francisco, to the San Francisco Pro Invitational, and I collected the blood and urine samples on the top 25 pro athletes in the world. Every one of these guys, I've got their questionnaires to this day, admitted every single drug they were using, the dosage, the frequency, everything else. Well, you think they needed me to give them drugs?
No.
Of course not. They got their own people, okay? Who came to me at that point in time were Olympic athletes that were subjected to testing, NFL athletes that were subjected to testing. Baseball had no testing.
Yeah.
Why would they want to bring in some new guy and talk to him about doing stuff if they can do anything and everything they want and they're not going to be tested?
But they didn't. That's the thing.
They didn't
but
what?
Bonds didn't have the success he had with all that other stuff. Think about the people you worked with. I don't have to tell you what Marion Jones did. I don't have to tell you what Barry Bonds did. I don't have to tell you what Romanowski did. The guys you worked with didn't, just kind of hang out and collect a paycheck. They broke records.
They became MVPs and gold medalists in world
and
records.
Marion Jones did things no other woman had ever done. Barry Bonds did something that nobody else had ever done. And the cream and the clear made that happen.
I don't know that that's true.
What do you mean?
Meaning it could have been something else.
Oh, Victor, come on.
I mean like the real thing, like injecting the real stuff.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
Okay, so
But
how about that possibility?
You're smarter than that.
No, I'm telling you the straight up. If I had to guess and tell you the honest to God's truth, whether it was the clear and the cream that helped him, if there were any drugs that helped him, or other possible drugs that he was using and injecting, possibly, I'd say it's more than likely the real food, not the baby food.
What's the difference between Tim Montgomery and Barry Bonds? Think about Tim Montgomery when he was, I think they called him Tiny Tim. Mm-hmm. And think about Barry Bonds as a Pittsburgh Pirate. Mm-hmm. Their bodies completely changed in a really small amount of time.
Mm-hmm. 2 months for Tim Montgomery. He put on 28 pounds. His bench press went up from 265 to 345.
28 pounds?
In 8 weeks.
That's remarkable.
But he was doing, this is very sophisticated pharmacology here. This is, but the bottom line is, in a word, and I will back up and say, let's take a look at these baseball players. Not a single one of them ever said or had that they got anything from me. And they didn't. That's the honest truth. Now, if they got something, did they possibly get it from Greg? And I'm going to tell you this. Obviously, Greg did stuff periodically, okay? So did many other people. So I'm going to put this in perspective. I had the cream and I had the clear.
Right.
And both of them together in a 3-week supply cost me less than $5. Okay? So there were times, I would say over a year, maybe year and a half period that he knew that I had this, that he would periodically come by and or maybe I'd hear it through Jim or Greg would say, hey, I need a packet. Never with the understanding that he was giving it to an athlete, but that he would get it for himself. So did he get somewhere between maybe 6 and 10 months, individual month cycles that were 3 weeks on, 1 week off over that period of time? Yes, he did. Did he ever tell me I'm giving this to Jason Giambi or Barry Bonds or anybody else? No, he didn't. Now later, of course, after the fact, when we see that this stuff is coming out and he was actually selling it to him.
Yeah.
Okay? But let me put it in perspective. He was also selling them testosterone and all kind of other drugs too.
And I think that's the interesting thing to fast forward to Melky Cabrera's situation, or when you talked about the 4-to-1 ratio. I think it's interesting because a guy like Melky, did he need it? In your opinion, you see a lot of guys, and not Melky specifically. Do they need it? Does it make that big of a difference?
Do they need it for what? To become
to excel,
hitting leader, to become MVP type guy? Of course. He I don't know how old he is, but my understanding is his career was going along like this, and all of a sudden it went like that.
That's exactly what happened.
Okay, so obviously he went from a guy that was struggling to get a contract to a guy that might have got a $50 million contract, all based on performance. Did what he did, which we know he tested positive for synthetic testosterone, did that enhance his performance? I believe the answer is absolutely yes. Now, let's back up here. I've known that this, what I call the biggest loophole in drug testing in baseball and all sport, for that matter, has been this synthetic testosterone loophole and the 4-to-1 TE ratio. Go back and look at the record. In November 21st of 2011, I got a call from a sports writer from the New York Daily News, Terry Thompson. And this was when they were introducing the growth hormone test. And I said, listen, they're wasting their money. That test doesn't even work. They can only detect for a couple of hours. Here's my real logic. You need to take and make the highest and best use of the funds that are available. Okay? So forget this growth hormone test, because growth hormone does not even enhance performance. They did a study out of Stanford where they reviewed every single study that had ever been done. Will it make your muscles bigger? Yeah. Will it burn some body fat? Yeah. It may have some effect on healing connective tissue, ligament, tendon, but does it make you stronger, and does it make you faster? And the answer is no. So if it's not performance enhancing, why the big whoop-de-doo? And then don't even pay attention to people coming in under the radar using fast-acting testosterone every night after games, and then showing up the next day and testing under the 4-to-1 ratio. So, and keep in mind, I said, this is what needs to be done. This is the loophole. This is what these players are doing. What happens? Ryan Braun, bam, positive, synthetic testosterone. What do you know?
Yeah.
You know, I come out and say this, and bam, he's positive. Well, then what happens? Then here comes a whole bunch of other ones. Lamont Peterson in boxing. Debbie Dunn in track and field.
What do you say about Marlon Byrd?
Well, do you want me to finish this and then talk about Marlon?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
At least a half a dozen from the date that I said that, the 21st of November, until the Milky Cabrera, and then all of a sudden, Milky tests positive. Well, look at what's happened since what I said on November 21st, 2011, until Milky. It's not just Milky, you got 6, 7 other people with the exact same thing. Okay, so they had me come down to Comcast. I was there, did 6, 7 interviews that day. I said, look, expect more. Okay, there will be more. This is just the tip of the iceberg. The next day, they had me on ESPN Outside the Lines. I said all this exact same stuff that I'm telling you now. What do you know? The next day, we got Cologne over here with a synthetic testosterone positive. The guy said, you know what the scary part is? He's saying this stuff. He had no idea that Cologne was going to test positive. It's because I understand drug testing. I know what the guys are up to. And I also said that same day, I'm not going to name names. A lot of people come to me, big-time athletes, big-time celebrities, and ask me questions. And, of course, I'm always asking them questions, too, trying to figure out. So I knew and had this confirmed by several big-time, big-name, big-money Major League Baseball players that these guys are using the fast-acting, rubbing on creams and gels and so on. Okay? And then, as I've always said, one of the big questions I ask these players is, here's the problem. They don't do any testing during the off season. And I said this then. There's 300, the contract between the Players Union and the Major League Baseball allows them to test up to 375 players during the off season. Why do they test 50? If you can test over 30%, why are we testing less than 5? So
you don't think baseball wants to?
I don't think they have a genuine interest in catching anybody. I think it's all propaganda. I think that Bud Selig is a propaganda king.
Is he happy though?
Testing, blah blah blah. It's a joke.
Is he happy Is he happy he catches a guy like Melky Cabrera once in a while?
Well, yeah. Oh yeah. I think that it gives them the ability to act like they're doing something. I think they want to act like they're sincere. I don't believe they are. If they want to bust some people, tell them to come talk to me. I'll show them exactly how to change the whole game.
If you were baseball, would you? If you were baseball, would you come and talk to Victor Conte? Because understand what that might look like.
It depends on whether you want to clean it up or not. I don't believe they do. I think they've known what's been going on all along. They're trying to make things look like they care. They go before Congress. They do just enough to get them off their back. NFL, the stuff that they said when they went before the Congressional Committee was, I almost fell off the chair when I saw them. They just said, oh, great, you do everything just like you're supposed to. Okay, you're off the hook. Green pass, go ahead. Does anybody believe that less than 1% of the NFL is using performance-enhancing drugs? Now, back to the issue with both Major League Baseball and the NFL. They use the drugs during the off season. So when you load up on drugs and you do heavy intensive weight training and you develop this strength and speed base, that serves you throughout the competitive season months and months later. So you got to put your hook and line and pole in the water when you know the fish are biting. That's what they don't do. That's what the Olympics don't do.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody really wants to clean this up at any level. And back to, I met with USADA 3 times face-to-face, went over thousands of pages of documents. I wrote letters and submitted information to the UK anti-doping on behalf of Dwayne Chambers, trying to help him. The BBC Sport took this information and gave it to WADA. Then I wrote a letter directly to WADA. Then finally, I harassed them to the point where they paid for me to go to New York to meet with Dick Pound face-to-face. I sat with him for 3.5 hours. I gave them enormous amounts of information. There was another attorney there that was scribing everything that was said. Then later on, I continued with some other projects with Dick Pound, but at a certain point, I told him certain people in certain areas like Budapest, Hungary, and Austria were doing certain things, and here's what you needed how to catch these people that were doing this. Well, so what happens? He goes back, I said, I told you about these drugs and what these people were doing in 2007. It's now 2010. And USADA's done nothing. I mean, WADA has done nothing. Can you please go back and get my original notes when I came in and look at what I was telling you then and then look at what I'm telling you now and look at the evidence I'm presenting to you now, okay? He called me back and he said, I'm sorry to tell you, Victor, but I've been informed that the minutes from your meeting with WADA have been destroyed.
Dick Pound respects you.
Dick Pound respects me.
Yeah,
Dick Pound's a good guy.
Yeah, he talked about you.
In the very beginning, I talked to him because I was afraid. I said, Dick, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to do all this stuff, and then what happens if they try to muzzle me or if they try to go a different direction or they try to taint me? And he assured me, he said, I'm not afraid to go against the grain. I will speak out. And he had